Okay, it's a couple minutes after 10, so we'll get started. Thanks everyone for joining. This is the MSDI Structures and Addresses Working Group. Meeting agenda for today, we'll do some welcome and introductions here, and then I'll give a very quick update on some of the recent ongoings with the structures and addresses theme. And then we'll dig into the primary topic for this meeting today. That's an overview of the data improvement matrix and some of the work we're trying to do on that. And then we'll leave time for discussion and hopefully feedback from you all. And then we'll talk about next steps. So first, just wanted to do some quick introductions. If you could just come off mute and tell everyone your name, what your organization is, and then if you want to list like a favorite park or other kind of outdoor spot in Montana, I'll get started. My name is Michael Fashway. I'm with the Montana State Library. I'm the GIS Land Information Lead. And I am also the Structures and Addresses Theme Lead. And I don't know, for the last few years or so, I think my favorite kind of place in Montana would be the Bob Marshall Wilderness. So maybe just to keep it somewhat organized, I'll try to call on folks as I see them. Alyssa.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So hi, I'm Alyssa Quiros. I'm with Yellowstone County. Um, I think my favorite park would probably be in Bozeman, the Highlight Lake area or Highlight Reservoir area. I spent a lot of time there in college.
Nice, thanks. Brian is next on the list, but he says he's not getting sound. Brian, can you hear us? Guess not. We'll skip down to Clayton is next, and hopefully Brian can figure out what's going on.
I'm Clayton Lane, Roosevelt County GIS, and my favorite spot is working on a TV tower at Fort Peck, Montana, at the top looking over the whole valley of Missouri Valley and the Fort Peck Reservoir.
Awesome. Evan, I think is next.
Hi, Evan Hammer here at the Montana State Library as well, Digital Library Administrator. I'll go with Glacier. Spend a ton of time up there when I need to recharge, get away. That's where I go.
Nice. Jamal.
Hi everyone, yeah, Jamal Han. I'm the GIS coordinator at Stillwater County, and definitely recently anywhere in the Beartooth.
Nice. It's one place I have not been yet, but it's on my list.
I recommend.
Next up is Jason.
Yeah, hey everyone. Jason Danielson, Wilson Clark County, City of Helena, a GIS analyst. I'm an address coordinator here. Yeah, piggybacking Evans, I'd say Glacier and kind of a mini glacier area is definitely my favorite.
Awesome. Jenny.
Jenny Conley with City of Bozeman. I do our addressing and some permitting here. My favorite area, I don't know yet. Was traveling around with fires. I'm finding a whole new bunch of areas that I hadn't really been before. So I don't know what my favorite is yet.
Fair enough. Looking next, Kelly.
So Kelly Christopherson, Ravalli County GIS, and I do most of the addressing over here. We don't really have a coordinator, but I guess I coordinate it. So something that's close to us, that's one of my favorites, is the Magruder corridor. So it's a 100-foot corridor that separates the Frank Church and the Selway Bitterroot, and it goes all the way over into Idaho, coming out around Elk City. But it's 100 miles of, you know, just wilderness on either side of you. And it's amazing. And if you guys haven't done it, you should try it.
Nice. Yeah, I've always wanted to drive that, but it's
Yeah, so it starts in Darby,
yeah,
Nez Pierce, yeah.
cool. Yeah, you have to be
You
very
gotta commit.
intentional about. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying
And
to
make sure you
say.
have plenty of gas.
Yeah. No, cool. Well, I know who to ask if I need tips about it.
Yes.
Up next, Matt.
Hi there. I'm Matt Trebish. I'm a GIS analyst with the State Library. I do a lot of statewide projects. Really difficult question, Michael. I like everyone, I love Glacier. I lived around that area for a while, but I have to say that I'm really enjoying Southwest Montana and the Gravelly Range and the Centennials and the Tobacco Root Range. And anything that's close to tromp around in is mountainous seems pretty fun.
Megan?
Yeah, hello. Megan Burns, also with the Montana State Library, the Edmund Boundaries theme steward. And I do love our trails here around Helena, Mount Ascension and Mount Helena. And then the Ross Creek Cedars. I love just walking around the cedars and all the mushrooms. Yeah.
Nice. And finally, Tom.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Geez, Tom Middle, GIS coordinator, Cascade County. Favorite places would be any golf course, I guess, even though I'm not good. And favorite local park would be Gibson Pond here in Great Falls.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. And Brian's still having issues, but it reminded me, I don't know if I mentioned it at the beginning, but this meeting is being recorded and will be posted afterward for folks that either want to re-listen or couldn't attend and want to hear. So, all right, with that, quick update on structures and addresses theme. Most of you probably are aware of this, but address points are statewide and currently being used for state and county elections management, i.e. total address. Most of you probably know all about that. We're actively working on data improvements for Next Gen 911. Most counties are in there and doing work in that area. There's also a lot of improvement happening just out of the total address elections side of things. Saw a lot of activity once the address points started getting used within total address. So both those efforts are kind of symbiotic and mutually beneficial, which is nice. And then finally, something I'm just trying to hammer home anytime I get an audience is we've kind of switched how I do the updates, and I'm no longer kind of going out to FTP sites or sending emails to folks to send me data sets, and we're instead relying on you all or the data providers in particular to submit updates via our MSL GIS data aggregation and validation portal. So that's the one spatial portal. We've met with a lot of counties, Bob Cochran and I, around the state, and everyone has access to that. As you can see in the screenshot there on the right, that hatched sort of symbology shows all the counties that have currently submitted data via the portal. So we're seeing a pretty good participation in that effort. And on my side, I really like it because it really streamlines that data update process. So, and kind of puts the data providers in a little bit more control on how often they want to get their data updated. So I think it's kind of mutually beneficial for everyone. And I should have said this as well. I run a pretty, I like an informal meeting. So if there's any questions or anything at any time, just feel free to interrupt me. Okay, getting into this assessment concept. So going back a few years now, MSL went through a strategic planning process. We worked with AppGeo on it, and out of that came the GIS coordination strategic plan. That was a roughly 5-year plan, and it prioritized kind of 4 what we call business plans. One of those, kind of grouped into goals, was a business plan to improve geospatial data value. So quote from the actual strategic plan was improve the collection, maintenance, and dissemination of authoritative geospatial information, aiding the creation of better policies, more informed decisions, and providing value to Montana. So I think there was a recognition back then that we, had done a lot of good work in terms of collecting and distributing statewide data, but as with anything, there's always room for improvement. And the way to go about that was kind of laid out within this business plan. So objective 3 within that was to assess the data sets and themes using data quality measures. And I'll get into that in a minute. Objective 4, based on those data quality measures, determine actions needed to improve the data sets, and then take all that and generalize it into basically a plan, a data improvement plan. So digging more into those data quality measures and how we go about assessing things. These were data quality measures that AppGeo recommended to us. First one is timeliness, which is basically just, an assessment of the data, update cycles, how, current it is, how well it meets different deadlines and things like that. And they kind of further broke that out into, again, more of an update frequency, and then an archive frequency, which is something we put a lot of emphasis at the library here on, is making sure we're archiving data on a regular basis and make that available for folks that need to go back in time and look at something at a previous time. The next measure was accuracy and precision. So again, spatial accuracy, how well does the data meet end user needs? What's the precision around that? Concepts like that. Next one is consistency. They defined this as a measure of similarities and differences between data stored in multiple data sets. So I like to think about it when we're talking about structures and addresses. All that data is typically created and maintained at the county, tribal, local level, and then I aggregate it at the state level. So we're inherently talking about 2 different databases. So when I think about consistency, we're kind of thinking about what those different databases look like, whether it's the structure or looking at it. It's a little bit actually a component of timeliness in there too, like how record by record, are they consistent? Is there stuff missing in the state layer that's in the local layer, or vice versa? Next one is completeness. This measure of how comprehensive the data set is. That's both on a spatial level. So is it statewide, or are there areas missing? Is it countywide, et cetera? But also completeness from the perspective of attribution. Does it have all the attributes that are needed to make that data set useful and beneficial? Are the attributes that are in there populated, et cetera? Integrity, an assessment of whether the data structure, schema, maintenance workflows meet end user needs. And then finally, relevance, an assessment of the accessibility and availability of the data required to inform business systems and answer business questions. So that really just kind of gets down to an overall assessment of, you know, does this data actually meet the needs of folks that want to use it? So then when we go about assessing the framework data, we look at these different quality measures, and for each one, we kind of looked at what are we currently doing with each one of these? What do we see as kind of the long-term need or goal that we want to get to? And then what are one or more potentially short-term goals or needs that we can work on to get towards achieving that long-term goal? So that was kind of the overall process of assessing. And then the way we actually go about doing that is kind of putting all this into a matrix. We just did it as a spreadsheet essentially. So across the top, you see those different quality measures, and then going down for any given theme, you have the current, the ideal, and then some kind of near-term or short-term goals to work to that. And for folks that, everyone that registered for today's call should have received a copy of the actual Excel spreadsheet that all this data was in. I sent that out on Tuesday and then followed up with a few folks that registered later and sent it out this morning. So hopefully, if you wanted to, you had time to kind of actually dig into all the details of the spreadsheet and think about different aspects of that. And we'll have time to, as I said earlier, we'll have time to kind of discuss that. If anyone has any feedback or comments on anything, we'd be happy to discuss that. In terms of trying to best kind of summarize all this work in a presentation like this, both Troy and I have done this several times now, both for the MGAC council meetings as well as the MSL commission meetings. And initially we started just trying to kind of go through that spreadsheet, but it's not the easiest thing to kind of present in any kind of clear, concise way. So what we decided to do is just kind of summarize on a couple different slides what we felt based on the spreadsheet and those quality measures was going well for a given theme, and then maybe what wasn't going well or needed improvement. So this first slide kind of shows what we think is working well, or what I think is working well for structures and addresses. Starting off with timeliness and specifically the archive frequency. Going back quite a ways now, we have yearly snapshots available on the FTP site, going all the way back to 2010. I started doing quarterly backups every time I posted an update, which back then was just on a quarterly basis. Starting in 2022, I started publishing the data monthly. So every month has a backup that's available. All that stuff is offline currently, but is available for request. So anyone that basically reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I need data, for such and such a time frame," I can kind of work with them to figure out whether that yearly snapshot is adequate or if they're looking for something more specific. We can dig into those quarterly or monthly backups depending on what time frame they're looking for. The next thing that's working pretty well, or where I feel like we're doing well here, is spatial accuracy and precision. When it comes to spatial accuracy, it was a mixed bag going back when we first started for quite a while. I think the goal was always to have a statewide, structure centric address data set. And we had a mix of structure points and address points for quite a while, depending on where a given data provider, a county or tribe or city managed their address points at the structure or address. So it was kind of a mix. But as we started talking about next generation 911 needs, and then got into the elections work, that accuracy requirement really came down to needing those address points located on the structure. Both for elections, for 911, it's definitely a best practice. And as we get into more sub-addressing within, a given building or structure, it'll be important to have, those different points, as accurately representing within a building or structure where that address is. In addition to other use cases like broadband mapping, I think the federal requirements laid out needed address points located within a structure footprint and things like that. So a lot of,
Me too.
sorry. Okay. A long way of saying over the last few years, we've seen quite a bit of improvement in that spatial accuracy. And I think there's only a couple data providers left that haven't kind of gone through that process of moving their address points to the structure. And we're kind of here at the library actively working with them to help them get them there. On the precision side of things, kind of the nuances of accuracy and precision can get kind of difficult or cloudy depending on what type of data you're looking at. When it comes to point data, I kind of break it down to, again, accuracy is how close that point is to what it's supposed to be representing. And then the precision is kind of the level of detail within that accuracy requirement. So when we're talking about points stored in a geodatabase, Esri kind of makes that sort of easy on us because it kind of gives you that default precision of the data built into the geodatabase, which forget it's like 1,000th of a meter or something like that. So that in the case of address points right now, that precision level far exceeds kind of the accuracy requirement that we're talking about in terms of getting that point located somewhere on that structure. So hopefully that makes sense to folks. And then the last quality measure here I want to kind of highlight in terms of things going well is completeness. Most of the addresses are represented in the data set statewide with kind of the minimum required attributes largely being populated and standardized. It's an address data set, so it's constantly changing. And, kind of based on the update frequency or how current some of the data is at the statewide level, you can make some arguments that maybe some things are a little less complete or whatever. But I would say as an overall statewide data set, we're doing pretty well here. But there's always probably some room to improve within given areas. But again, I think overall we kind of have what I would consider a statewide data set with the minimum attributes needed to make it work for a lot of uses. Any questions on that? Okay. So what could be improved? Again, timeliness is going to go first here, update frequency. I, again, publish monthly updates. So that's pretty consistent. But for any given update that I publish, only like has updates, quote unquote, from those counties or data providers that have submitted data for any given month. So, we have currently some data providers giving us nearly monthly updates. Some are, everywhere 2 to 3 months. Some are more, quarterly or yearly updates. And then we have, again, about half or so of the data in the framework is older than a year, with a number of data providers that goes, quite a long ways back since we last got an update from them. So it's a very mixed bag there. And my hope and goal is to see that improve a lot as, again, both the elections effort, which, really needs timely and accurate address updates, as well as the next generation 911 effort kind of continues and really ramps up here in the next couple of years. So I really hope to see that update frequency overall improve statewide. Again, not every data provider needs to submit monthly updates. Some counties don't have all that much change going on, and a quarterly update or even a yearly update might be sufficient for them. But there's a lot of counties that have a lot of growth going on all the time, and we'd like to see those data providers, submitting updates on a pretty regular basis, whether it's monthly or every couple of months. So hoping to kind of see that improve, and we're happy to work with you all to make that happen if you need help. Bob Cochran, who does a lot of the Next Gen 911 support, has built some workflows and tools and stuff to try to make that as easy as possible on folks. So just throwing that out there. Consistency, again, both from a schema perspective and then kind of a record consistency. Bob, again, has been working a lot with getting folks either to adopt that Next Gen 911 GIS data model, which is kind of how we standardize the data at the state level. There's a lot of benefits to doing that at the local level if you're able to. It makes that sharing process go really easy. But we know of some good reasons why that isn't always possible for some counties, and that's okay. As much as possible, we try to work with them to either get their schema in a somewhat compliant manner so that, maybe it's just field names that need to be mapped. But Bob has also worked with folks on kind of developing ETLs that they can run as part of that update process, that take it from their schema and share it into the next Gen 911 schema for uploading into our GIS validation and aggregation portal. So things are improving there, both again from a schema and a record consistency, which again kind of relates to some of the timeliness and update frequency components above. And that's something I didn't necessarily point out when I was giving an overview of all the different data quality measures, but a lot of them have they'll tie into each other, and you'll see kind of common things happening across different data quality measures. So we'll see some of that here in the feedback, and what's going well or not. The last two I kind of grouped: integrity and business relevance. Again, much of the data kind of, I would say, meets sort of the minimum requirements for current uses out there. But we know there's, issues around some of that. Specifically, zip codes is something that we struggle with, and there isn't so far an easy button to kind of fix that. So that's definitely a long-term sort of thing to work on and try to improve. I know I'm working at the state level with USPS right now to see what kind of things they recommend we can do both at the state level and at the local level to try to improve that. So that's definitely one of our goals. Sub-addressing is another area that is going to kind of have increasing emphasis over time. Like a lot of data sets and themes, there's a kind of an ever increasing need or desire for accuracy. And when it comes to address data, a lot of that comes down to sub-addressing. Do you have all the apartments mapped? Right now, they could be stacked points, but over time, when we start getting into more and more 3D mapping and interior indoor mapping kind of stuff, there might be a desire to see those points distributed spatially, both horizontally, across a building footprint, and then quite possibly, over time vertically as well, as kind of 3D requirements come into play. I wouldn't worry too much about the 3D stuff right now, but just something to kind of keep in mind. That's definitely where a lot of next gen 911 sort of requirements are starting to go. So, and then just kind of overall, I could probably make an argument that there could be some improvement on all of the data quality measures, even the ones where I, mentioned things are going well. That would help kind of increase the data value, at least for some folks out there. So like anything, there's always room for improvements. Any questions or comments on that so far? Okay. Overall, I don't know if folks had time to dig into the matrix that I sent out or not, but I'd definitely be curious just getting overall feedback or specific feedback on any given data quality measure, how folks are using the data. Is it working for everyone? What could be improved from a data provider side for those of you that manage data locally? What would you like to see? I'll kind of open it up for any thoughts or feedback. Well, I guess I'm doing pretty well.
Michael, I have a question on the spatial one.
Yeah.
Is there a sub address field in there that it breaks it down into? Because I know on our analysis, there was a lot that it pulled in as duplicates, and I don't know that it would have. And maybe it just wasn't mapped in that particular analysis.
Yes. So the schema that the one spatial tool uses for validation against is kind of the current version of the NINA Next Gen 911 standard. So it does include those sub-addressing fields like building, floor, unit, room, and seat. Building, floor, and unit being kind of the most common ones we see in Montana. So chances are if you were seeing duplicates, or address points flagged as duplicates coming out of the validation, either you had duplicate address points without the additional sub-addressing information with them, or there might have been something that didn't map properly from the data submission on your side into that. And that's something that Bob or I could look into with you to make sure that that's being done properly and you're not getting kind of false flags for duplicate records.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. From a local sort of data creator, maintainer, provider perspective, do any of you have kind of concerns about where things are going or what's being kind of asked? Or do you feel like it's, well within reason, or you're good with kind of where we're headed?
I think our biggest challenge is just working with the city to make sure getting them on board with everything. Um, since I maintain the addressing database for the whole county, but the city still has their own stuff. So trying to get them plus the 911 center on board has been a little difficult on our end.
Okay, yeah, that's good feedback, and you're not alone in terms of kind of a county GIS struggling a little bit potentially with cities and coordinating your address kind of related stuff. So I hear comments about that fairly regularly. So
God, I just kind of wanted to say the Cascade County and the city of Great Falls kind of had the same problem, but our data's matched up for years for our 911 center. But the way the 911 center is set up, they have to use our legacy data. So Aaron and I and Nate are working on the NG 911 data and the legacy at the same time. But Bob is literally a god at this. He's come up with so many scripts that take care of everything pretty much by themselves. So we just add in the new address and it automatically updates our legacy data. And then I send that to the city. Aaron's got a script that pulls out the new data and just runs the legacy data and sends that to 911. So yeah, there's definitely workarounds for that. They're 1,000% over my head, but Bob knows what the heck he's doing.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tom. I think it was back at GeoCon, I kind of highlighted, I think in my update, some of the great work that you at Cascade County, working with Aaron and stuff at the city to improve your data have done. And yeah, Bob's great. And so that's a plug. If you're struggling with anything, feel free to reach out to us because we might have some suggestions or thoughts on how we can help you work through some of those pain points. So, and I know Bob has worked quite a bit with Gallatin County and City of Bozeman as well. So, any other thoughts or questions? Okay. Next steps. So I think everyone has the matrix. Feel free to review that, think about it for a few days. You don't necessarily have to provide feedback here and now. I'll probably, let's see, today's the 12th. Maybe set a deadline for getting any additional feedback you might want to send by the 19th. And then we have a MGIA council meeting coming up July, I think it's July 10th, Thursday, July 10th, where I'll be presenting the matrix, probably as a pre-recorded video to the council. And then we'll take that data matrix and work it into that data improvement plan, which will then kind of help guide us for the theme to kind of work on some of these different things over the next few years. And I'll schedule another working group probably this fall as I get a draft of that plan put together to kind of go over and present it to everyone and open it up for feedback. So that's kind of the next steps going forward. Again, working towards that goal of developing a plan to work to improve the data and make it work for everyone that needs it. And then it's kind of a screenshot there of what that plan will kind of look like. So. Any additional thoughts?
Michael, I have a question on with Google Maps. Are you a partner with Google Maps? Are you submitting this stuff up to them?
So I don't submit directly to Google. What I do is twice a year submit the data to the National Address Database. And that's that federal effort coordinated by USDOT with help from the Census Bureau. And Google harvests data on a regular basis from the national address database. Google does, Esri does, I want to say TomTom and some others are increasingly pulling data from that. So that's kind of how I go about that data sharing effort, is kind of put it out to the national address database, and then as much as possible steer those kind of national or third party private sector folks to that, because they grab all the data not only from Montana but from 20 some 30 some other states that way. So that's kind of how we're going about that data sharing process. So you should see, if you have known address issues in Google Maps, you should see those improve over time as you're sharing the data with us, and then we're pushing it up.
I've just been looking into some things like ways for cities and some of that sort of thing. And one of the discussions in a webinar that I sat in on, I think it was Monday, talked about like the hierarchy and how they accept data. So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't overriding something if we were to submit, say, monthly.
Yeah, that's a good question. In theory, you shouldn't be, and I think they do give some level of preference, to like a local provider. So, if you feel like you need or want to see that data get pushed in there a little bit more regularly, then, again, I push it in twice a year. How often Google pulls data from Montana specifically and updates their stuff is a little bit, out of my control. So in a place like Gallatin County or City of Bozeman, if you want to see that data integrated more often, I think it's perfectly reasonable to share it yourself, and hopefully you are seeing that data reflected right away. But again, in theory, if you're sharing the same data with us, there shouldn't be any issue with overwriting or canceling things out.
We're looking at Ways for City, which Google bought out, I guess, and but they're different platforms. And we're looking at it for like road closures and that sort of thing. Instead of just having public put stuff in that they might see, we would like it to be a little more authoritative than that. So we've been kind of looking at it. But having said that, it is now sitting with the city attorney to review, because there was a couple of things in there having to do with liability, and if we received a records request, that they would need in writing a request or a copy of the request as well. And so I'm not quite sure how that's going to go over. And it sounded like in the webinar the other day that other people were having maybe some of the same concerns. So we'll see where that goes.
We had a case this is Clayton out of Roosevelt County. We had a case where a school teacher had disgruntled students and placed that address that teacher stayed at in 3 different locations on Google, because you can manipulate that information. So it took a little while to get Google to clean that mess up because of the problem. So I dislike using Google because it's not accurate.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah. There's definitely kind of the crowdsource aspect of it can be problematic when you got folks that want to kind of use it inappropriately like that. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay. Hearing none, I can give you a few minutes of your day back. You should all have my contact information. Again, feel free to dig into the data matrix. If you have additional feedback or comments, you can send them by email. Feel free to call me if you prefer to hash it out over a Teams meeting or something. We can do that. I'll send out an email after the meeting here and just remind folks about submitting that. I think by the close of or end of the day on Thursday, the 19th, next Thursday. That'll give you a week. And let me see, any other things? I think that's it. So thank you all for joining today. I appreciate your time and feedback, and look forward to hearing or seeing you in the future.
Thanks, Michael.
Have a good, yep. Have a
Thank
good day,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Yep.
Hey, Michael.